Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chena Bushell, the Executive Director for a Living Library, Think Park and Gardens. I've asked Frank to click for me because I prepared something, so I apologize beforehand. Since I won't be looking at you, I'm going to be reading. I met Bonnie 6 years ago after answering a digital ad for a garden teacher. I recall Bonnie explaining on the phone that she lived and taught gardening in San Francisco and was looking for a strong gardener to work on Roosevelt Island. If you knew Bonnie, then you know that she loved to talk. So I'm not sure if she was interviewing me or pontificating about her life and the work at Life Frames Incorporated. We talked for hours. But you should know, although we had a great conversation, I was interested in another position. After we spoke, a day later, I received 3 offers, each with specific instructions to call back to accept. With Bonnie's offer, she stated to call her back later since she was on the West Coast. Her first 2 calls I could see were dialed using an out-of-state area code. This was also the time when area codes had been where new area codes had been introduced, and the 2 of the 3 callback numbers were California exchanges. You know how in the past we used to have to jot down our return cell phone numbers? Well, in my haste and excitement, I called back the 212 area code. Little did I know that Bonnie used 2 phone numbers, one with a New York area code and the second with a San Francisco. So when I returned the call to accept the position, Bonnie answered. She was elated and at the same time annoyed because I hadn't followed her instructions. And she rambled on without giving me a moment to speak. That day, I fell into Life Frames, Inc. Bonnie took me under her wing and allowed me to build my vision within her world. Every year, she added more responsibility to my position till I was writing the annual grant, talking to the funders, and writing the interim and final reports. We spoke 3 to 4 times a week, early mornings, Eastern Standard Time, and toward the end, every day. We shared experiences, and we loudly discussed differences. 2 gifts she bestowed upon me: always record your work, something she did wonderfully, we all know, and always allow art to surround or be your world. Bonnie Ora Sherk was synonymous with a living library, Think Park and Gardens. The first time our founder, Bonnie Ora, as she liked to be called, mentioned the term a living library was in 1981 when she created a master, I don't have my glasses on, so I had to look at those. It's 91. When she created a master ecological plan to develop the then Bryant Park in New York City. She wanted to bring Manhattan's main public library, which sits adjacent, into the gardens using the Dewey Decimal System to locate each section of which she would call the Gardens of Knowledge. Bonnie's words to describe a living library. Everything that I have done in my life in art has led me to develop a living library, ALL for short. I put together the things that I love, and a living library is what has emerged. I do think of a living library as an art form. It's a powerful framework, a series of methodologies and strategies to make relevant ecological change in communities and schools. The goal is to systematically integrate local resources, human, ecological, economical, historic, aesthetic, all seen through the lens of time, with community-led programs in interdisciplinary hands-on curriculum. For the last 2.5 decades, with Bonnie at the helm, branch living libraries have taught thousands of children and young adults gardening or knowledge, the community-led ecological transformations. In San Francisco and New York, Bonnie created 4 living libraries, and since her death, we have restarted 2 of them. In San Francisco, through funding from the California Natural Resources Agency and the Community Challenge Grant, led by San Francisco youth, we are completing a nature walkway along Seneca Avenue, where students known as A Living Library's Green Future interns have and will continue to plant hundreds of native trees and understory plants to positively affect the rise of the Elias Creek. Bonnie designed this nature walk to reconnect displaced communities affected by forced developed highways. These paid interns year-round work in ALL's after-school program, conversing with contractors, city and school officials, building what Bonnie calls life-scale environmental and social artwork. This past summer, we hosted 49 interns. Our goal this year is to host 75 to complete this project. In New York, through funding from New York Community Trust and the Green Fund, Roosevelt Island youth and seniors worked together to build a native teaching community garden where monarchs lay their eggs, hummingbirds buzz, bees pollinate, and love doves kiss. In the past 2 Septembers, families of yellow warblers frolicked for weeks as they migrated south. And in the last 5 years, Roosevelt Island community planted 50 trees, 50 fruit trees, 4,000 daffodil bulbs, and thousands of perennials and annuals. Each year, for 10 weeks between spring and November, you can find little hands in soil, sowing seeds, digging holes, planting native plants, trees, and vegetables. Each year, we host a vegetable and me class where we teach children between the ages of 3 to 5 and 6 to 8 a different vegetable weekly. This past season, we added another class where we worked with mothers and taught the class in Japanese. This year, we plan to add an additional class and teach it in Korean. Another huge success occurred when 6 upper class people, without direction, built a 3-foot by 70-foot paver walkway using sand and gravel to create an accessible pathway. They hauled 15-pound pavers and bags weighing 40 to 50 pounds. They completed 3/4 of the project in 4 weeks. Our gardens are public art learning spaces, and in Bonnie's words, it is where performance has evolved to become community participation and a place so whole experiences are created. ALL is a replicable model that is practical and provides unique solutions for diverse places that also function as beautiful learning environments for all ages. ALL's future. We will continue to follow in Bonnie's footsteps, building ecological transformations. Bonnie has left us with an abundance of detailed designs for future works. Personally, as the executive director, my goals are as follows: to make ALL more inclusive by hiring people of the community to develop, lead, mobilize, and share our and their knowledge. To add food sustainability and food justice to our mission, for it is not enough to beautify and ecologically correct damaged, forgotten neighborhoods. We must provide and create healthy alternatives that drown out negative staples, which are already deeply embedded into these communities. To empower young adults using gardening as an educational mechanism to teach, foster youth coping and cooperative skills while uptraining them for future green job opportunities. To emphasize art. And finally, so that Bonnie is remembered and receives the adulation and credit she deserves for her foresight and wherewithal to use nature to repair itself. Today, SFPUC has taken on several of her practices and incorporates it into their work. Bonnie deserves recognition for her forethought. She deserves accolades for her idea to replant native trees to swallow up emerging water from underlying creeks instead of pushing them through what she called expensive pipes. Bonnie, a living library, believed that everything is nature. Lastly, I want to just give one thought. Last night, it's been a whirlwind. I've been here for 2.5 days. I'm leaving right after. And I've been out every day meeting with principals and talking to teachers to find out exactly where they like ALL to help them and how to bring back in-school teaching to San Francisco schools. And last night we all met, we had a dinner, I got home late, and I receive a call as I walk in at 11 o'clock from a staff member. You're not answering my calls. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's late. I'm like, and JD says to me, I've asked the interns to show up tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And I said, JD, I really have to prepare for my speech tomorrow. And I'm a little jet lagged, you know? And he says, Sheena, he goes, I told him you're coming. And I said, okay. So I looked at, and he communicates with the young people through WhatsApp. So I looked up the WhatsApp, and I just see a message. Nobody has responded. So I'm like, great, I gotta get up, I gotta travel, because it's about a half an hour, and I've never experienced San Francisco traffic. I thought New York was bad, but 6 miles can take you 45 minutes to an hour. Crazy. Well, anyway, I show up. I show up 5 minutes to 9, and as I drive in, it's the school, and usually there's lots of parking spaces, but everything's full. And I'm like, where am I gonna park? But as I'm driving, I see 4 students waiting outside. And then I find a little park and I just pull in. And then JD gets out of his car, he opens the gates, and as he opens the gates, all these car doors start opening. Parents have driven their kids to school, and they're all waving at me like, hi, and these kids are coming in. There were 11 kids waiting to meet me on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. This is what Bonnie's work has done, and we have much more to do. Thank you.